You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. The Trump administration will no longer extend the window for the 2020 census. Trump said earlier that they needed more time because of the coronavirus pandemic. Okay, that's weird. Now, to be counted, households must complete the survey by September 30th rather than October 31st. The Census Bureau will also end its efforts to knock on the doors of households that have not filled out the survey online by paper form or by phone. Okay, so this is where this is all confusing. So they say they need more time to count, but you're going to cut it a month short. Doesn't it make sense to actually extend it and then count? All right, this makes no sense at all. Joining me is Congressman Stephen Horsford of Nevada. He is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus's 2020 Census Task Force. He's going to join me in just a moment. But I'm going to talk to him about this, but I'm also deal with him on another issue, and that is the advertising agency, Young and Rubicam, the Young Rubicam Group. They got the overall contract to handle communications, the ad dollars for the United States Census. But how much did they really spend on black media? Now, I was told point blank that they pretty much pushed out Carol H. Williams' advertising agency, the multicultural agency, black-owned, saying they didn't have the capacity to handle ad buying, but they do. Now, what's crazy is this here. They did give some money to different black groups and some black media, but we here at Roland Martin Unfiltered, we actually filled out. I was contacted by somebody who works for the census who said, hey, man, we need some help. Our numbers are down. Hey, we should be advertising on your platform. I was also told that Carol H. Williams had us in their digital platform, but they ignored it. They chose to put a lot more of their money in black events. Well, because of COVID, no black events. So check this out. So we filled out the form. We filled out all the paperwork. Went to their online portal. Nobody called. Nobody responded. Now, here's what's crazy. We did 25 million views of this show in the month of June, 30 million in the month of July. There's no other black digital platform that can compare with our numbers. Not one. So what in the world's going on here? See, this is how these ad agencies freeze black people out. And this is how we are unable to access ad dollars, which means we can't grow our companies, we can't grow our staffs, we can't build capacity. They choke the dollars off and keep us from being able to access them. And then they choke the dollars off of ad agencies like Carol H. Williams, which keeps them from being able to grow. See, the whole issue with the ad agencies out there, and it's not just Young Rubicam Group, it's all of them. They control the dollars of these major corporations. They get these big government contracts. But then they come up with their metrics that freezes black media, black-owned media, out of the dollars. Congressman Stephen Horsford is joining us right now. Congressman, how you doing? All right, I can't hear the congressman, folks, so let me know what's going on.
Can you hear me?
Now I got you. You there?
I am. How you doing, Roland?
I'm doing good. So let's first start with this decision to cut it a month short. Here's what I don't understand. The Trump administration says we need more time to count. But if you cut it a month short, you may undercount people. So doesn't it make sense to actually keep the deadline where it is and then you count after that?
Absolutely. This is the most outrageous, politically motivated move to not have a fair, accurate, and complete count. The Congress has been working since last year and really before that to try to hold the Trump administration accountable. They actually requested an extension of the self-reporting process until October 30th of this year once the COVID pandemic started. So for them now to come in and say we want to cut that an entire month short is going to disproportionately impact the hardest to count communities, which include Black, Latinx, and indigenous communities the most. That means less money coming to our communities at a time when we need it the most.
And so, again, I know, for instance, in Texas, they're like, yeah, we're not going to assign any dollars to this whole deal. I mean, it is as if, it is not as if, their strategy is very simple. We don't want to count Black people. We don't want to count Latino people. We just want to count white people and then let that be the numbers. And also explain to folks watching how the census impacts everything in this country.
Well, the Congressional Black Caucus, and I'm proud to chair the task force on the 2020 census. We actually had a meeting last week with Stacey Abrams. Her organization, Fair Count, has been, again, working on the ground, not just in Georgia, but across the country, to have a complete, fair, and accurate count, particularly in Black communities. The same forces that do not want Black communities to vote are the same forces that are now trying to change the rules in the middle of the census to not have us to be counted. You asked, why does the census matter? So every 10 years since 1790, as required under the Constitution, we are to count every single person who resides in the United States by April of that year of the census. And so that is the process that we are currently undertaking. My congressional district here in Nevada's 4th District was created in 2010 based on our count. I am the first Black person to serve in Nevada's federal delegation, the first person of color, in fact, to serve from Nevada's 4th. And so representation is a big part of this. But the other side is nearly $1 billion, billion with the B, of federal money gets allocated every single year based on information that comes from the census. That's money that goes to fund our schools, to fund healthcare, to fund grants for small businesses, students that want to get loans to go to college. And so if we're not counted, that's money that's not going to come to our communities, and instead it's going to go to other communities. And I said $1 billion with the B, I actually meant trillion, $1 trillion of funding every single year.
And not only that, we're talking about voting. We're talking about power in congressional districts. We're talking about reapportionment. And the reality is the growth in this country is coming in minority communities. In Texas, they have increasing representatives. The Midwest, okay, Rock keeps talking about these white voters in the Midwest. They're losing population. White people are dying. And so Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio, they stand to lose seats in Congress over the next decade because of the growth in the South and the Southwest. That's also what they're trying to hold on to.
It really is outrageous, and for them to do it so blatantly. Just a month ago, the census director appointed a political appointee inside the census. There's 2 positions that they've recently appointed. Never before have we had political appointees now making decisions about how the census is supposed to be run. And so what is being done about this is Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, the chair of the House Oversight and Reform Committee, has brought forward a bill. It was a bill that we had introduced actually earlier in the year because we were concerned with the Trump administration trying to not have a fair and complete count. So that bill is now being brought up for a vote. It would ensure that we complete the census and allow that time through October 30th of this year. And under federal law, there's actually a provision that says until you reach 90% response rate, you got to keep the census going.
Right.
So again, the fact that they are not even meeting their own standards that they themselves created in their plan is just outrageous, and Congress is not going to allow it to happen. I
got to ask you this because this is a part of this deal. So the U.S. Census, the federal government, awarded the national advertising contract to young Rubicam Group. They control the entire deal. They, frankly, have been freezing out black ad agencies. They froze out Carol H. Williams Advertising, one of the most iconic advertising agencies in the country, black-owned. I can tell you, Congressman, for a fact. Now, I do know that some money was given to Stacey's group. I do know some other black media companies like Blavity got some dollars as well. But I was told that most of the money to try to get black people to sign up for the census was put into events and churches and things along those lines. Well, COVID hits in January, February, no events. So for January, February, for February, March, April, May, no June as well. So forget trying to sign up folks at Essence and all the rest of these places. We applied, according to Young and Rubicam, it was go to their online portal. We put together our proposal, applied, have not heard from anybody from Young and Rubicam. And I'm wondering, in terms of, are they putting the money in black media? We did 25 million views in June, 30 million in July. Our numbers are what they are. And I know for a fact that Carol H. Williams agency was telling these people, you gotta do black digital to reach African Americans and pushing them on the census. But you have this white ad agency doing what they do, not sending dollars to black media outlets. This is also part of the problem. So it's not just the Trump folks cutting it short, it's Young and Rubicam not respecting black consumers and black media companies. And that's how we get frozen out. So we can't grow and build capacity. Carol H. Williams can't grow and build capacity because of what folks like Young and Rubicam Group do.
Well, I really can't disagree with anything that you said, Roland. You're absolutely right. And the Congressional Black Caucus actually met with the director of the Census Bureau and a ranking official executive from YNR to discuss this very issue earlier this year before all of the spending was finalized, and to put pressure on the YNR to make sure that they were inclusive to not just black-owned media outlets such as yours, but also black media publications. And literally one of the responses that we were told was, well, unless they have a circulation of more than 50,000 people, then we're not going to put our advertisements in those publications. But yet, those are the very publications that reach our community.
There you go. So here's what they do. So Congressman Horsford, here's what they do. Here's what Young and Rubicam and all these other ad agencies do. They establish metrics that purposely lock us out. So they establish these metrics that, oh, here's the cutoff, as opposed to knowing black people. I can tell you that a Carol H. Williams or a Burrell, or when Don Coleman was in business, and when Eugene Morris was in business, and when R.J. Dale was in business, I just named you three black ad agencies and no longer in business. Those black ad agencies know black people. They know what black people read, what they listen to, and what they watch. But these white ad agencies don't care about any of us, and that's also part of the problem. And that's also why there's an undercount, because if you're not investing in black media and what they want us to do, and check this out. I sent some tweets out last night. All of a sudden, Young and Rubicam calls a black ad agency, and they want us to run stuff for free.
It is totally unacceptable. And look, I know what the process was at the beginning. We actually requested to see the entire marketing plan. I did a stint in media, so I understand the role that media plays in reaching our communities, particularly black communities, as you said. And there has to be an account for every single dollar.
Right.
Congress actually increased the budget for the census. The Trump administration had only asked for $2.5 billion. We were able to get more money added to that budget, but we told them that we wanted to see more investment in black communities and other marginalized communities so that we would see an improvement in the undercount. But look, going back to my original point, that has that issue with YNR, they're going to have to be held accountable. Meanwhile,
that's right.
We need every single person in our community to know how important it is, despite the fact that our community wasn't given those dollars, that we still have to be counted. Why? Because if we're not, then it's our children, it's our community.
For the next 10 years.
Our businesses that will not get the funding over the next 10 years, not 1 year, but over the next 10 years. And it's a loss of a nearly $1 trillion.
Well, here's the deal. I would love for the Congressional Black Caucus to demand from Young and Rubicam to provide an itemized listing. And it needs to say, no. We want to know specifically the black media outlets, and we want to know by name and dollar amount so we can see what's black owned and what isn't. So, for instance, if they gave money to BET, that's Viacom. They're not black owned. But it needs to be an itemized listing and then a bottom number to say, okay, here was your total budget. This is how much you spent on black media and then everybody else. I guarantee you there's going to be a wide discrepancy there. And that is one of the problems that we have. And so you're absolutely right. We should be signing up. It is our money. But this is how systemic racism works when these agencies, these white ad agencies, freeze us out. So they freeze out the black ad agency like Carol H. Williams. They freeze out the black media companies like this show. And then they go, well, what are y'all talking about when it comes to wealth building and wealth creation and inequality? Well, that's how the CNNs of the world become multi-billion-dollar companies and black media is withering on the vine. Final comment, Congressman.
Well, my final comment is I will absolutely follow through with your ask and to get that breakdown. These are public dollars. These are taxpayer investments into a process that's required every 10 years. This is not about making Y&R or any of their friends wealthy. It's about making sure every single individual who resides in the United States is counted under the law. It is another example of systemic racism where the investments that are provided by Congress as the representatives of the people are not put into the very communities or with the very outlets or publications that we know work. And this is a problem that we've seen time and time again in previous censuses, but we're not going to just sit and let it happen. We're going to hold them accountable. Meanwhile, I am asking people to get out and be counted. Complete the census. It takes less than 10 minutes. Make sure every single person in your household is counted. It doesn't matter your previous status, if you were formerly incarcerated citizen, if you were homeless. I especially want people to make sure that every child in their household is counted. We have seen children under 5, for whatever reason, they don't get included in the response. And that means those children aren't getting the dollars that they need for the next 10 years. And we just can't let that happen. So thank you for bringing attention to this, Roland. You're always staying on the issue, and this is a very big issue.
Congressman Stephen Horsford of Nevada, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot. All right, folks, we're going to bring in our next guest in a moment. I want to bring in my panel right now. Kelly Bethea, communication strategist, Melik Abdul, Republican strategist, Joseph Pinion, Republican strategist, and political commentator. Joseph, I want to start with you. The reason I'm going hard on Young and Rubicam, because I know for a fact we filled it out. I mean, I got a call from an African-American who worked for the Census Bureau saying, we need help. We need help. Man, your show would be a great outlet for us to be able to advertise on, to push the census every single day. We filled it out on the Young and Rubicam portal, have not received a phone call or an email. And I'm sitting here going, please, by all means, show me another black media company that's having the reach that we're having on the digital side, where we're live 5 days a week and we're streaming 7 days a week. This is how black companies get frozen out, not just in advertising, but in so many areas, Joseph, because they create these metrics that purposely keep us out so the money keeps flowing to the larger, largely white companies.
Well, look, I think you're right to bring up the fact that this is bigger than a media issue, even though obviously when it comes to black and brown communities, the media issue is where it impacts us the most. You're talking about the fact that when you have people bidding on contracts for providing services for states, providing services for cities and municipalities, black companies inevitably face some of those same barriers. And so I think that we need to start exploring things such as blind bids that can actually provide greater latitude for the work to speak for itself. Because if perhaps someone wasn't looking at the fact that, oh, those 25 million views came from Roland Martin Unfiltered, and was just simply looking for a place to find 25 million eyeballs, then it might be a larger capacity there for you to be able to get those bids, for more Black businesses to be able to get their foot in the doors that have inevitably been shut in our faces, because of the fact that the dirtiest secret in all of this is that there are people who sit in rooms that we don't talk about, who don't want to see Black people participate in the census, and certainly don't want to see Black businesses get ahead.
But here's what happens, Kelly. At these ad agencies, ain't no Black people there. And we're working on something right now with Color of Change, picking up that Madison Avenue project that they were focused on more than a decade ago. And that's part of the problem. You have white folks in these places, very few Black people. They're not. And see, here's the piece. The ad agencies, they control the ad dollars of the corporations. So here we're talking about the federal government. We're taxpayers. And so they still are freezing us out. Now let's start talking about all these corporations where they're sitting here and we've been on phone calls. And this is what happens, Kelly. They go, what are your metrics? Not what's your engagement, not how do your followers comment and share, whatever. It's, okay, what are your metrics? They immediately go to that because that's how they penalize and get rid of Black media companies that are smaller than a lot of these other companies. They purposely create a scale that we can't meet. Why can't we meet it? Well, because you're freezing us out. When we launched this show, we did 9.3 million views our first month, September 2018. Last month, we did 30 million views. So what if they say, well, no, the bottom line metric is 50 million. Well, guess what? If I actually be able to get more ad dollars, I can build my staff, then we can be able to do more things, stream more things, we can actually grow. That's the game that they play.
You really hit the nail on the head with this one, but it also goes back to what Joseph was saying about this is truly systemic racism. You mentioned how there's no people in the room when these discussions are happening who are people of color and Black people specifically. That part is systemic. The fact that the bar keeps getting raised and lowered and switched up in terms of you getting ad dollars, that is systemic. Everything that you're talking about right now is a systemic racial issue. Yep. And I guarantee you that if a smaller white company came to the table the same way that you did, the first question out of these ad agencies would not be, show me your metrics. It would be, show me your engagement, because that's what they are looking for. They are looking for people who look like them to buy into things that they buy into. Yep. And they don't really care about the diversity because there's no diversity in the room. If you are in an echo chamber, all you want to do is hear your own voice. So that's why diversity is important. That's why this issue needs to be at the very top of everybody's list, especially when it comes to the election, when it comes to anything concerning us as a people, especially in this country, because for everything that is a roadblock to our progress, systemic racism is behind it. So we definitely need to be more vigilant about this.
I need to be real quick, bringing this guest, Beth Lynk. She's the director of the Census Counts Campaign for the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights. Beth, what we're talking about here is if we start breaking down why there's an undercount. I was told in February that they were behind. Then I was told in March they were behind. And then in April, they said they're behind. In May, they're behind. And so then I start asking, well, where are you putting your Black dollars? They said, well, the Black dollars, they froze out Carol H. Williams' agency and said, oh, we're going to put it in events. What, no damn events because of COVID?
Yeah. So, I mean, we came into this 2020 census knowing that in 2010 that we saw millions of Black people missed in the census. So we knew we needed innovation. We knew we needed to partner with Black media to get out the message about how important the count is and to overcome the very real and justified fear that exists in communities about census participation. And so it is disappointing. And at the leadership conference, Conference and the Census Counts Campaign, which I lead at the Leadership Conference Education Fund, has been kind of raising the alarm that partnerships with trusted media sources like your show, partnerships on the ground, both online and off, were going to be incredibly critical to get out the count and to educate people about why the census is so critical.
And here's the deal. Somebody might be watching saying, Roland, all you saying is you need some money. You damn right. I want black magazines. I want black radio. I want black websites. I want black podcasts. I want black media to get dollars. And this is how they freeze us out. And again, if you so you freeze us out of the ad dollars, which means that we can't sit here and talk it up, but they want us to do it for free. Then we get hurt as black people because we're undercounted, which means billions of dollars that are supposed to go to black communities don't come to black community because the census determines roads, bridges, airports, public transportation, congressional delegations. Healthcare. It determines how funding is spent from the federal government for the next decade, which means a black kid that is 12 today, and their family gets undercounted, they won't be able to fully participate until that child's 22 years old.
Right. I mean, so you're spot on. I mean, the census at its core is about money and power. It is about the distribution of $1.5 trillion every single year in healthcare, education, infrastructure that go to communities. It's about the distribution of political power, the number of seats in Congress every state receives. And it's also, as a civil rights advocate and as working with civil rights advocates day in and day out, census data is a critical tool that we use for change to defend civil rights legislation and also to advocate for future legislation that protect and help build our communities. The other thing that I think is really important for folks to know is that we're living within a pandemic and a pandemic and a pandemic. We're seeing the Black community being under assault by COVID-19 and our health and our bodies being attacked. We're seeing our bodies and our safety under assault by attacks by the police and police brutality. And then we're seeing our democracy under attack by having efforts by the Trump administration to try and strip our right to participate in the 2020 census and our right and our ability and access to the vote. So it is incredibly critical that anyone who's listening certainly ensures that individually we all participate in the census, but also that we are using all of our platforms to educate and let everyone know how easy it is to participate in the census, and that when folks are trying this hard to deprive us of our right to participate in the census and get that money and power to our communities, we have a duty and a real opportunity to fight back by participating and encouraging everyone to do the same.
All right, Beth, we certainly appreciate it. Again, Beth Lynk, Director of the Census Counts Campaign for the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Melik, I'll go to you. First of all, does it make sense to say we need more time and you cut the count a month short? That just makes no sense at all. You should want to count more people. And unfortunately, what we have seen is, like I know for a fact in Texas, you have Republicans who have not really been helping with this. It's like there's this design to undercount Americans.
Well, I can't agree that it's a design to undercount, because we do know that they did extend the deadline initially, as you said, until the end of October. But now they pushed it back. They pushed it forward by a month. From what I've actually learned about this is that there are a lot of this is actually tied to redistricting. And when those deadlines are, so there are certain states that require deadlines to that data collection to be received by the census year. There's others that require it by the actual publication of the census itself. Next year, Virginia and New Jersey have general elections. So there are deadlines as far as their redistricting that they have to go through in New Jersey and Virginia. Neither one of those are red states. The rationale behind it seems to be that this is in reference to data collection. But I would also add to that this is not something that's limited to red states. California, if this is actually pushed back as far as that data collection, California will be coming up against. I think there will be Delaware. There are several states that will be affected by this. And from the administration's perspective, what they're looking at is saying that we're trying to get the data collection. So as you said when you initially introduced this is in reference to the field operation, but not the digital operation. But I did want to also comment on the story, what you were talking about with the media dollars, black media dollars. Well, we know, Roland, that we've talked about this is an extension of a conversation we've had on your show many times before when it comes to black political capital, black people being able to get seat at the table. One of the things that I've been talking about just over the past months, even in the midst of these protests and what we're doing with Black Lives Matter, everyone wants to come to D.C. and take nice selfies at Black Lives Matter Plaza, but then these same people go into these boardrooms, they go into these HR offices, they go to these same spaces, and when it comes to giving people like Roland Martin money, when it comes to giving all of our advertising dollars, making sure that black people have a seat at the table, the same people who hold up these Black Lives Matter signs are also the ones who are making those decisions.
Actually, let me just correct you. Let me help you right there. What we have seen is the very people you're talking about, they have been doing that in the ad agencies since the George Floyd death. And we actually had the brother who was on the show, Bennett, D. Bennett. They created this campaign where they talked about the inequities in advertising agencies and what has been happening. And I've talked to African Americans and multiple ad agencies. There, you have white partners and black folks in these firms have been giving them hell about this very issue. And so what you're talking about, people who have been out there on the streets, they have been doing that. And so I subscribe to Ad Age. And all of a sudden, Omnicom had to release their numbers because they got pressure internally from their white and black employees to release their numbers. I think it was another group, ICM, I think, I'll pull it up, where they had to release their numbers as well. And so this thing has been happening, and that's why I'm working with Bennett and the others on this particular group, and I'll actually get the name of it in a second, because we are specifically going after these ad agencies. We're talking about the companies that control all of the spending capital of these corporations, and they deliberately are ignoring and shorting black media companies to the tune of billions, and now it's time for that reckoning.
Oh, I agree with that. I don't think we're saying dissimilar things at all. My point is that this is something that we've talked about. You're talking about opportunity, black people having opportunity in any arena. This is something that we've talked about on your show many times before. Yes, there has been a movement post George Floyd of trying to get some of, raising this awareness, and you're having people make pushes for these boardrooms, for these decisions to be made in favor where actually black people are benefiting. But my point is that we've had this discussion many times before, even during the protests with Colin Kaepernick. Well, we saw that we had a similar conversation about, what's happening in the front offices of these places. The same thing that we had after, I think they're going to start with the Black National Anthem before the national anthem.
Yeah, but
those type of things are great symbolically.
Right, but this is about money.
In the boardrooms making those decisions, it really doesn't matter. So we need to continue to push these companies, continue to push our white allies to join us in this effort, and not just gaslight us talking about Black Lives Matter,
Robert,
when behind the scenes they're not doing anything to ensure that Black Lives Matter.
Robert, this is one of the groups called 600 and Rising. Here we go to my iPad. And so what they've been doing is they have been specifically targeting folks who work in the ad agencies. They've gotten lots of pickup there. That's what they do. And Robert, on this point again, and I need people to, I'm sorry, Joseph, my apologies. I need people to understand what's going on here. I need them to understand that the reason black media companies are so small, because you depend on advertising. And when they starve you of those dollars, then you can't get it. One of the things that I'm just going to give you an example, Joseph, of something that happened. So we talked to a major corporation, and they said, we know Roland, we love Roland, we know his audience, we know he connects with his audience, we want to do a deal with Roland. So then they said, need to talk to their agency. Now, we said, hey, we ain't trying to deal with no agency bullshit. That's what we said, because we know what we're going to get. We've been down. This ain't our first rodeo. We call the agency. The multicultural person, black, even goes, what are your metrics? We're like, no. We ain't having that conversation. We've already talked to the client. The client said we want to do the deal. So we said, no, why don't you call the client, then y'all call us back. And then they start trying to toss out other stuff out there. That's the game that they play, Joseph. That's how they freeze us out. And that's why this is my 13th black media experience. I have seen this in black newspapers, in black radio, black websites, in every form of black media, black magazine, you name it. This is how they do us, and this is where we got to say no. And I have people who tell me, Roland, you shouldn't call out Young and Rubicam because you ain't going to get no business. I ain't getting no damn business right now. So you might as well call them out. Joseph, go ahead.
Look, I think there's a time for truth and reconciliation. The fact remains that, again, if you talk about even the pay scale at some of these media companies, it is the worst open secret in the world. That oftentimes what people of color are paid when it comes to being on air is much different than their non-black counterparts are being paid to do the same ask, even if they have a less robust following. So I think at the end of the day, what we're really talking about, and I think even to Malik's point, is that you have to have an actual plan to make sure that there are people that look like us in the room. Even we're talking about, what was it? One of the founders of Refinery 29 had to resign over the fact that what they were saying on Instagram was not consistent with what was happening in their boardroom.
But you know what? Joseph, here's the deal. When these ad agencies, here's my whole deal. Other folks can say, I need somebody in the room. What I'm saying is, damn it, give the money to the Carol H. Williams. Give the money to Burrell. Give the money to Uniworld. There are black ad agencies that are there who do this. I'm saying they know how to do it. But see, what they're doing is they're shoving them aside. See, a Carol H. Williams, a Monique Nelson at Uniworld, Ossie McGee Williams at Burrell and others, they know us. They know how we do this, but they even freeze them out. That's what makes it worse. They freeze the black ad agency and the black media out.
Yeah, but that would require them to give up control of the dollars, because
there you go.
Dollars is how you actually control the industry. And so, again, you end up with basically two paths. You end up with an agency that tries to say, hey, tell us how you do this. And then they try to do it themselves, and inevitably they end up doing it poorly. Or the alternative is what you've been describing, which is, again, they set up these metrics knowing full well that the metrics that as they have been prescribed cannot be met by the most robust portion of black businesses who are specifically sped up to target our communities. And so, again, the money goes to a BET, even though a BET is no longer a black-owned business, but it is a business that serves black people, right? The money that gets spent on an advertisement budget for an organization like McDonald's goes to organizations that are not black-owned, but obviously a robust portion of the audience for McDonald's is African-American, which is why the people in the commercials are African-American. So,
which is why, for me, I want to see the list. I want to see who black targeted got money and who black owned got money, because I want to see that breakdown. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, folks, Seek.com is a black-owned company. They make these virtual reality headsets here. You can utilize it with their content on Seek.com. Mary Spio is a sister. She actually is the inventor of this, and so this is a great, I love the colors, black and gold, my frat colors, and also they have these great headphones, tremendous bass, 360-degree headphones, 4D as well. You can use this for gaming. You can attach a microphone to it. You can also do Bluetooth or do the power cord. And of course, you can use this for phone conversations as well. The other day I was walking a 2-mile walk, and so listen to music, but then had that conversation when people call my cell phone with these headphones. All you got to do is go to Seek.com, CEEK.com. Use this promo code RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020 for a discount for these products. And when you support them, you support Roland Martin Unfiltered.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.